Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video, and today I'm doing a review of the Doctor Who episode Deathras? I always pronounce it Deathrax, but it's Deathras, I think. Anyway, and it's written by this chap, and our person whose name I can't pronounce, so sorry about that if you need to know who it's written by. And that, which is kind of important, but anyway, yeah, it also stars Tom Baker and Lalla Ward as the Fourth Doctor and Romana. On the cover, you've got quite an interesting cover. You know, you've got these pterodactyl monster things, you've got the season 18 sort of banner and our title sequence and Tom in the vortex, as well as the logo, which is very season 18, which is suits this season being season 6. Big finish there, full cast audio drama. You've also got a chimpanzee, Romana, the Fourth Doctor, submarine, and as I say, these like pterodactyl-like creatures and that. On the spine you've got Doctor Who, Deathras, 6.4, meaning it's part of the 6th season and or series of the Fourth Doctor Adventure series, and it's the 4th episode in that series. You've got the synopsis there, so if you want to read that, if you can, feel free to pause the video. Then also you've got the cast list and the runtime and the release, or the sort of year of the release, and that. Then you've got the disc and the reversible cover, or the standard bit of the cover. The other side, this side was the reversible one. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's an hour long, like all, pretty much most, if I'm not mistaken, Fourth Doctor Adventure series episodes. So it's two-parter split up, or half an hour each, both parts. What else? Oh, it was released back in 2017, so it's a fairly oldish Doctor Who episode, I guess. It's not one of the newest, most current, obviously, stories in the Fourth Doctor Adventure series, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're already on series 9 now, which is kind of insane to me. But yeah, and I think in series 6, I think, if I'm not mistaken, again, I think it's a 9 episode series. So yeah, I've got 4 out of 9 of the series so far. And yeah, getting more into the episode as opposed to other bits, other things. The Fourth Doctor is Tom. It's Tom Baker being Tom Baker. It's very good, you know. He's not particularly witty in this or funny in this story, but then again, this story is quite a serious story, honestly, all things considered. It's not very timey-wimey or paradoxical, but it's quite, for lack of a better term, surreal, I might say. Yeah, and the pterodactyl type creatures kind of remind me of creatures from the 8th Doctor Adventure series, which are like the pterodactyl things that can fly in like the time vortex, but they are different from those, so, and that. But honestly, after listening to the story, I was like, oh wait, actually, that's what I was trying to, or having to picture in the story, because I pictured something different, but oh well. Likewise with Romana's costume, I kind of pictured her in a City of Death costume. I adore the chimpanzee and or monkey character, whose name is Franklin, I think. Yeah, Franklin is the monkey's name, I'm pretty sure, and or chimpanzee, and that in itself is amazing. It's such an interesting sort of story, this Deathras, to me personally, that I honestly don't want to talk too specifically about the story because it'll give things away. I really liked the first part cliffhanger. It wasn't what I was expecting, and I always like that when a cliffhanger is, for lack of a better term, subverts my expectations. The audio quality is 10 out of 10, like superb audio design. You know, with it being based on a submarine, in some of the episode being set on a submarine, it very much makes me think of like a sort of audio version of like the episode Cold War with Matt Smith and the Ice Warrior. But the difference here is that the sounds and creaky atmospheric stuff of being on a claustrophobic submarine is intensified because it's just the sound. And then also the music is superb as well, and goes really well with a lot of the scenes and a lot of the different things. I was only ever I only sort of dipped out of the story once, in terms of my not enthusiasm, but in terms of my focus. And I'd say for the most part I could visualize quite a lot of this story, even though, as I say, some of the monsters I was visualizing not like what they are like on the cover. I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm kind of getting, the more I've listened to Doctor Who Big Finish audios, the more I'm like a bit more lenient on myself that sometimes what I picture isn't exactly what maybe the writer had in mind. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the point with Doctor Who. You know, it's our interpretation of it, you know, and it's totally up to us how we interpret it, really, and especially if it's non-visual, I guess. And that, I also love the fact that the story is bookended with Romana and the Doctor, for lack of a better term, having banter, and them being quite well, not argumentative, but a bit cheeky with each other, you know, like, Romana is just, I think, at rope's end with the Fourth Doctor, really. You know, this might be set, pretty much near the latter end, and or near the end of her timeline, and or her time with the Fourth Doctor, because she is very much like, oh, how do I put up with you, Doctor, sort of thing, you know, and Tom's just like, well, you just do, you know, sort of thing, or just sort of shrugging it off like, oh, well, thank you, Romana, you know, just taking it as a compliment, even though it was kind of obviously an insult, you know. And it's kind of funny, they say stuff about the randomizer, yet what was weird to me was the fact that the Doctor was like, oh, yes, I'll just bypass the randomizer and go somewhere random, and I'm like, wait, why not just use the randomizer? Because the clue's in the title, Doctor. That's a random button. Like, surely that'd just take you somewhere random. It was just weird to me that was a thing. I don't know, maybe it was just there as a bit of a cheeky, you know, let's just, you know, sort of make a bit of a joke at the sort of stupidity of the randomizer, and also maybe, you know, annoy some fans, I don't know, but yeah. I adore the setting, as I've said to you before, about the setting of the submarine. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, K9 takes a massive back seat in this story. He's not in it at all, really. Spoiler alert, I guess. But then again, to be fair, he was, thinking about it in retrospect, the last episode, the Silent Scream, episode 3 in this season, he is quite prominent in that story. He is quite, you know, in that story quite a lot, and he's quite active in that story from what I remember. It's been a while since I've listened to Silent Scream. But yeah, so it kind of made sense that this one would be, you know, sort of either have him in a little bit or maybe not even at all. Unfortunately, he's not in it at all, but then again, you could say that that's because maybe they've replaced K9 with the monkey and or chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee is quite critical to the sort of story, I guess. There is a villain-esque woman. She's quite interesting in that. There's quite a few, like, as I say, subvert your expectations and or plot twists, if you will. It feels very sort of Series 10 episode 5 Oxygen-esque. It feels like that episode, but with Tom Baker instead of, like, Capaldi. And if that interests you, then feel free to pick this one up, definitely. Like, it's like Oxygen, but without the visuals, with Tom Baker and Romana, and it being more sort of, again, sort of, for lack of a better term, experimental and a bit, you know, sort of all over the place. In you know, in terms of, like, its ideas are quite sort of big and grandiose, and that, but yeah, it's hard to really describe, but there are still some nice, real sort of character moments of sorts, which I thought was quite interesting, because how you juggle that with some bigger ideas and thoughts and sort of stances of stuff that the story goes for, and that. I like the ending. The ending's quite nice and sweet and that. What else? It's got the proper, sort of 1980s Tom Baker sort of title sequence, both opening and closing, which is to be expected, but I just thought I'd mention that anyway. Romana is surprisingly good in this. I quite like her. She kind of feels quite strong and sturdy as a character, like you believe that she's been in this show and or been with the Doctor for quite a while and become a bit more of a stern, assertive, proper sort of character. What else? The supporting cast are really good, and yeah, it ranges from, like their acting is really good, but them as characters, they are quite integral to the story, I guess, because it is quite a small cast. Last time I checked, if you look at the cast list, it's not massive, and so everyone brings their A game, I thought, as well. So overall, to conclude this review, I'd definitely give Deathras a 10 out of 10. It's a really good story. It's easily up there with Eternal Battle for my favourite episode of Season 6 of the Fourth Doctor Adventure series. Of this recording. Depends on, obviously, if there are other releases that I buy, or if and when I ever buy any of the other releases, maybe they'll take over this one. But it's definitely one of the stronger Season 6, as I say, episodes. 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Oh, feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe, even.